The alien general was shaking with fear. He looked at the human commander and asked, "How do you survive drinking this poison?" The commander just smiled and took another sip. To the galaxy, caffeine is a Class A death serum. To humans, it's just Monday morning. This is the story of how coffee won the war. The mud on planet Zeta 4 was deep, sticky, and cold. It covered everything. It covered the walls of the trenches, the boots of the soldiers, and the heavy metal of the tanks. For 5 long years, the war between humanity and the Krill Empire had raged on this dirt ball of a planet. Commander Jack sat on an empty ammo box, staring at his boots. He tried to wipe the mud from his face, but he only smeared it more. He was exhausted. His bones ached. His eyes felt like they had sand in them. He had not slept in 50 hours. Around him, his soldiers looked like ghosts. Their faces were pale and gray. They leaned against the wet dirt walls, trying to keep their eyes open. They were losing the war. They were not losing because they were weak, or because they were scared. They were losing because they were human, and humans need sleep. Across the battlefield, the enemy waited. The Krill were not like humans. They were giant insects with hard, green shells. They stood 7 feet tall and had 4 arms. The most terrifying thing about the Krill was not their laser guns or their sharp claws. It was their biology. The Krill did not sleep. They did not need rest. They could fight for weeks without stopping. They were machines of war made of meat and shell. General Xar, the leader of the Krill army, stood on a high ridge looking down at the human base. He adjusted his optical sensors. He saw the human guards nodding off. He saw the slow movement of the human patrols. He made a clicking sound that passed for a laugh. The humans were broken. They had no energy left. Tonight, he would order the final charge. The Krill would swarm over the walls, and the tired humans would be too slow to stop them. Back in the human trench, the mood was heavy and sad. Commander Jack checked his laser rifle. The battery was full, but his own body was empty. He looked at his second-in-command, Sergeant Miller. Miller was currently slapping his own face, trying to stay awake. It was a pathetic sight. They had run out of energy boosters days ago. They had run out of stimpaks yesterday. Now, they only had water and dry protein bars. The human army was running on fumes. They knew the Krill were gathering for a big attack. They could hear the clicking and hissing from the darkness beyond the lights. Every soldier knew that if they fell asleep now, they would never wake up. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. It was not an explosion. It was a vibration from the sky. Commander Jack looked up. The thick gray clouds parted. A massive shape descended from the atmosphere. It was a human supply ship. It was the USS Last Hope. The soldiers slowly stood up. A tiny spark of excitement went through the camp. Usually, supply ships brought more bullets, new heavy cannons, or medical supplies. The soldiers prayed for a new weapon. They hoped for a super bomb that could wipe out the bugs. They hoped for automated turrets that could fight while they slept. The ship landed with a heavy crash in the landing zone behind the trenches. Steam hissed from its engines. The large cargo ramp slowly lowered onto the mud. Commander Jack and his team walked toward the ship. Their legs felt heavy, like lead. They reached the ramp just as the cargo droids began pushing out large wooden crates. There were hundreds of them. The crates were not marked with the symbol for explosives. They did not have the symbol for medicine. They were marked with a simple picture of a leaf. "What is this?" Sergeant Miller asked, his voice cracking. "We need nukes. We need plasma throwers. Why did they send us crates of leaves?" Commander Jack stepped forward. He pulled a crowbar from his belt and pried open the lid of the nearest crate. Inside, there were no high-tech weapons. There were just sacks. Thick, heavy, burlap sacks. Jack took out his combat knife and sliced one sack open. Small, hard, brown beans spilled out onto the metal ramp. The soldiers groaned. They felt defeated. The High Command had sent them food ingredients instead of weapons. They were going to die, but at least they would have beans. But Commander Jack did not groan. He froze. A strange look appeared on his face. He picked up a handful of the brown beans. He held them up to his nose and took a deep breath. His eyes, which had been half closed for days, suddenly snapped open. A smile spread across his dirty face. It was a scary smile. "Sergeant," Jack said, his voice suddenly stronger. "Get the water boilers. Get every grinder we have. Wake up the cooks." "Sir." Miller was confused. "The Krill are attacking in 1 hour. We don't have time to cook stew." "This isn't stew, son," Jack said, crushing a bean between his fingers. "This is the Class A stimulant of the ancient gods. This is Arabica. Dark roast." The order went out. The soldiers were confused, but they obeyed. They set up the large industrial kitchens right in the middle of the mud. They poured the brown beans into the grinders. A loud, buzzing noise filled the camp. Then, they poured the brown powder into giant pots of boiling water. And then, it happened. The smell. It started as a faint whisper in the air. Then it grew stronger. It was a rich, dark, earthy aroma. It cut through the smell of ozone, burnt metal, and swamp mud. It was the smell of morning. It was the smell of life. As the aroma drifted through the trenches, heads started to lift. Soldiers who were lying on the ground sat up and sniffed the air. The smell triggered something deep in their DNA. It was a signal that said, "Wake up. It is time to move." Commander Jack stood by the boiling pot. He watched the black liquid bubble and froth. It was thick. It was darker than the night sky. He dipped a metal cup into the brew. Steam rose from the cup, swirling in the cold air. He took a sip. The bitter, hot liquid went down his throat and hit his stomach like a warm explosion. His heart skipped a beat, then started pumping hard. The fog in his brain cleared instantly. His hands stopped shaking. He felt a buzz traveling to his fingertips. He turned to his tired army. He raised the cup high. "Line up," he shouted. "Drink. Tonight, we do not sleep. Tonight, we dance." The soldiers scrambled forward with their cups. The smell of the coffee drifted across the battlefield, all the way to the Krill lines. General Xar smelled it too. He did not know what it was, but for the first time in the war, the alien general felt a shiver of fear. The humans were up to something. And it smelled delicious. High upon the rocky ridge, General Xar stood perfectly still. The cold wind of planet Zeta hit his hard green shell, but he did not feel it. He was focused on the hunt. His 4 eyes were pressed against the lenses of a high-tech tactical scanner. Beside him, his lieutenant, Vrak, held a digital tablet, ready to record the victory. The Krill army was hidden in the darkness, waiting for the signal to attack. They expected to see the humans sleeping. They expected to see guards leaning against the walls, eyes closed, ready to be captured. But that is not what Xar saw. Through his scanner, the image was clear. The human camp, which was dark and quiet only 10 minutes ago, was now glowing with light. Large fires burned under giant metal pots. White steam rose into the air, creating a fog around the human base. Xar zoomed in his lens. He saw the humans standing in long lines. They did not look tired anymore. They looked eager. They looked hungry. Each human held a metal cup. They walked to the pots, filled their cups with a thick, pitch-black liquid, and drank it in one big gulp. Some humans even went back for a second cup immediately. What are they doing? Xar asked, his voice clicking with confusion. Are they drinking poison? Are they committing mass suicide before we can kill them? Vrak looked at his tablet. The sensors were picking up strange readings from the human camp. No, General. They are not dying. Look at their heat signatures. Their body temperature is rising. Their hearts are beating faster. Much faster. Xar looked back through the scanner. He watched a human soldier, the one named Commander Jack. Jack slammed his empty cup down on a table. Suddenly, Jack's body went rigid. His eyes opened so wide that Xar thought they might pop out of his head. Then, Jack started to move. But he did not move like a normal human. He moved like a machine that had been set to fast forward. Jack turned to his men and shouted something. Xar's audio sensors picked up the voice. It was not a slow, tired command. It was a rapid-fire stream of words, spoken so fast that the translator computer could not keep up. Right. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Fix that wall. Clean that gun. Move it, move it. I feel alive. Who needs sleep? Sleep is for the weak. Xar watched in horror. The entire human army began to vibrate. They were shaking with energy. A group of soldiers ran toward a broken section of the defense wall. Usually, it took humans 3 hours to fix a wall. These soldiers were lifting heavy metal plates like they were made of paper. They were hammering bolts with a speed that made their hands look like a blur. They were running back and forth, jumping over mud puddles, laughing maniacally. One human soldier was sitting on the ground cleaning his rifle. He took the gun apart, cleaned every piece, and put it back together in 10 seconds. Then he took it apart again just for fun. Then he did 50 push-ups. Then he ran a lap around the camp. General, Vrak whispered, his antennae trembling with fear. This is not normal. Humans are a slow, lazy species. They need 8 hours of dormant time. These creatures, these things down there, they are monsters. Xar zoomed in on the black liquid again. He saw the steam rising from it. He saw the dark, oily surface. It is a drug, Xar said, his voice low and serious. It must be a Class A combat superdrug. We thought they were waiting for food. We were wrong. They were waiting for their combat stimulant. That black potion, it turns them into berserkers. The Krill general felt a cold knot in his stomach. He had fought many species in the galaxy. He knew how to fight strong warriors. He knew how to fight smart warriors. But he did not know how to fight warriors who vibrated with pure, chaotic energy. If his army attacked now, the humans would not be slow targets. They would be fast, aggressive, and unpredictable. A human with that much energy could probably punch through a krill shell with their bare hands. Look at their eyes, Vrak said, pointing at the screen. Their pupils are dilated. They are scanning the perimeter constantly. They will see us the moment we move. Xar watched Commander Jack again. Jack was currently pacing back and forth in the trench, talking to himself, and shadowboxing the air. He looked dangerous. He looked like a bomb waiting to explode. Cancel the attack, Xar ordered sharply. Vrak looked at him in shock. Cancel. But General, we outnumber them 10-1. Numbers do not matter when the enemy is on a super drug. Xar snapped. If we go down there now, they will tear us apart with their bare hands just to burn off their excess energy. Look at them. They are digging new trenches just because they are bored. It was true. The humans were now digging holes in the mud at super speed, seemingly for no reason other than they couldn't stand still. We cannot fight them head-on, Xar decided. He looked at the bubbling pots of black liquid with greed in his eyes. He realized that the war had changed. The humans had a secret weapon. If the Krill Empire could get this black potion, his soldiers would be unstoppable. They could conquer the whole galaxy. We need that liquid, Xar said, formulating a new plan. We need to know what chemical magic gives a soft, fleshy human the energy of a nuclear reactor. We will not attack tonight. We will wait for them to crash. And while they are distracted by their own madness, we will steal their supply. Xar lowered his scanner. The attack was off. The heist was on. The humans continued to run around their camp, buzzing with the power of the dark beam, completely unaware that they had just terrified an entire alien army simply by drinking their breakfast. The moon over planet Zeta 4 was hidden behind thick clouds. It was the perfect night for a crime. Commander Zog, the leader of the Krill Special Stealth Unit, crawled on his belly through the wet mud. He moved slowly. He did not make a sound. Behind him, 4 other elite alien soldiers followed. They were dressed in black camouflage suits that absorbed light. They looked like shadows moving in the dark. Their mission was the most dangerous in the history of the Krill Empire. They were not there to kill the human commander. They were not there to blow up the fuel tanks. They were there to steal the source. Zog signaled with one claw. The team stopped. They were at the edge of the human camp. Zog checked his sensors. The camp was silent. A few hours ago, the humans had been vibrating with energy. They had been running around like crazy creatures. But now, the black potion had worn off. The inevitable crash had happened. The humans were now in a deep, heavy sleep. The sound of hundreds of humans snoring filled the air. It sounded like a broken engine rumbling in the distance. Stay low, Zog whispered into his radio. Do not touch the skin of the humans. If they wake up, they might breathe fire or explode. The team moved past the sleeping guards. The guards were slumped over sandbags, drooling slightly. Zog felt a moment of pity for them. The chemical crash from the superdrug must be terrible. The aliens crept toward the large supply tent in the center of the camp. This was the target. This was where the humans kept the treasure. Zog used a laser cutter to slice a hole in the tent fabric. He stepped inside. The smell hit him instantly. It was the same strong, earthy scent from before, but concentrated. It made his antennae twitch. In the center of the tent, stacked in a neat pile, were the bags. They were brown burlap sacks stamped with mysterious human codes: Arabica, Robusta, and Espresso roast. Target located, Zog whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. I am looking at the power source. He motioned to his team. Grab the bags. Be careful. Do not tear them. If the raw powder touches your skin, it might dissolve you. The alien soldiers carefully lifted the heavy sacks. They treated them like they were handling nuclear bombs. One soldier stumbled, and the team froze in terror, expecting an explosion. But the sack just made a soft thud. They let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. Sir, whispered Lieutenant Vrack, pointing to a table in the corner. Look at that. On the table sat the machine. It was a large, industrial coffee grinder made of chrome and steel. To the aliens, it looked like a terrifying weapon. It had sharp blades inside and complex buttons. That must be the reactor, Zog said, nodding wisely. That is the machine that activates the beans. We need it. Take it. 2 soldiers lifted the heavy coffee grinder. They struggled under the weight, but they did not drop it. They had the fuel, and they had the reactor. It was a complete success. Slowly, silently, the Krill team backed out of the tent. They crept back through the mud, past the snoring humans, and vanished into the darkness of the jungle. They had pulled off the greatest heist of the war. They were heroes. The sun rose slowly over the human camp. It was a gray, miserable morning. Birds screamed in the trees. The damp cold of the mud seeped into the bones of the soldiers. Commander Jack opened his eyes. He felt terrible. His head hurt. His mouth felt dry. The energy from yesterday was gone, replaced by the heavy fog of a caffeine withdrawal. He sat up on his cot and groaned. His back cracked. He needed one thing. He needed it right now. He needed his morning cup. He stood up, put on his boots, and walked toward the mess tent. He did not smile. He did not speak to anyone. The other soldiers were walking the same way. They looked like zombies from a horror movie. They shuffled their feet. Their eyes were half closed. No one said, "Good morning." Saying, "Good morning," before coffee was against the rules. Jack entered the mess tent holding his favorite metal mug. He walked straight to the table where the coffee pots usually stood. He reached out his hand, expecting to feel the warmth of the pot. His hand grabbed nothing but air. Jack blinked. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. The table was empty. There were no pots. There were no bags of beans. The grinder was gone. There was only a muddy footprint on the table, a footprint with 3 toes. A krill footprint. The silence in the tent was heavy. It was the silence of a tragedy. Sergeant Miller walked up behind Jack, holding his cup. "Sir. Is the brew ready? I have a headache." Jack stared at the empty table. His brain slowly processed the information. The aliens had been here. They didn't kill anyone. They didn't steal the ammo. They didn't steal the maps. They took it, Jack whispered. His voice was low and dangerous. "Took what, sir?" Miller asked, yawning. "The coffee," Jack said, his voice rising. "They took the coffee. All of it." Miller stopped yawning. His eyes went wide. The other soldiers in the line stopped moving. A murmur of panic went through the crowd. "No coffee," someone whispered in horror. "But, it's Monday." Jack turned around. He was not scared. He was not tactical. He was just a man who had not had his caffeine, and now he was going to make it everyone's problem. His left eye twitched. "They stole my breakfast," Jack growled. He looked toward the jungle where the enemy lived. He did not look like a soldier anymore. He looked like a wild animal. "Alert the troops. Wake everyone up. I don't care if they are tired. I don't care if they are sick." Jack slammed his empty mug onto the table. The sound rang out like a gunshot. "We are going to get my coffee back," Jack shouted, and his voice cracked with pure, raw anger. "And God help any bug that stands between me and a fresh pot." The science lab on the Krill mothership was bright, white, and very clean. It was a place of serious business. Usually, the scientists here studied black holes, laser technology, or advanced genetics. But today, the smartest minds in the Krill Empire were gathered around a small, dirty table. On the table sat the stolen prize, 50 bags of espresso roast and the chrome coffee grinder. General Xar stood at the head of the table. He looked proud. He felt like he had just stolen the secret to the universe. Beside him was Chief Scientist Glip. Glip was wearing large protective goggles and holding a pair of tongs. He was treating the coffee beans like they were radioactive rocks. "Report, Scientist," Xar commanded. "What is the composition of the human power pellets?" Glip looked at his data pad. He looked confused. "General, the chemical structure is strange. It contains a molecule called 1,3,7-trimethylxanthine. We believe humans call it the waker-upper. It is a neurotoxin. In high doses, it should cause panic and shaking. But humans drink it for fun." Xar laughed. "Humans are primitive beasts. Their bodies are dull. They need this poison to feel anything. But we are krill. We are superior organisms. If this fuel makes a weak human run fast, imagine what it will do to us." Xar turned to the stolen grinder. They had plugged it into the ship's nuclear power core. Prepare the solution, Xar ordered. But make it better. Humans are weak, so they probably dilute it with water. We will make it pure. Glip nodded. He did not know the correct recipe. A human usually puts 2 spoons of coffee into a pot of water. Glip decided that was too weak for a mighty alien warrior. He poured 5 whole bags of beans into the grinder. He pressed the button. The machine roared. It screamed as it crushed the beans into a fine, dark powder. The smell filled the lab. To the aliens, it didn't smell like breakfast. It smelled like burnt wood and chemical warfare. Then, Glip poured the mountain of powder into a large vat of boiling water. He did not filter it. He let it boil until it was thick, black, and sludge-like. It looked like tar. It bubbled slowly, popping with a menacing sound. "Behold," Xar whispered. "The essence of war." He signaled to the door. 5 elite Krill soldiers marched in. They were the biggest, strongest warriors in the army. They were called the Death Squad. They had never lost a fight. Today, they were the test subjects. "Soldiers," Xar said. "Today, you will evolve. You will drink this human battle fluid. It will give you the speed of lightning and the strength of a collapsing star. Drink." Glip handed each soldier a large beaker filled with the thick black sludge. The liquid was so strong it was almost solid. The soldiers looked at it nervously. But they were loyal. They raised the beakers to their mouths and swallowed the mixture in one gulp. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The lab was silent. The soldiers stood perfectly still. Then, the soldier on the left twitched. It was a small twitch, just his left antenna. Then his right antenna twitched. Then his arm jerked. "How do you feel?" Xar asked eagerly. The soldier opened his mouth to speak. I can hear colors," the soldier said. His voice was vibrating. "I can see time. General, why is the floor screaming?" Suddenly, the caffeine hit their insect biology. Insects are not built to process caffeine. In nature, caffeine is actually a poison to small bugs. To giant space bugs, it was like being plugged into an electric socket. The first soldier's heart rate monitor on the wall started beeping. Beep, 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 beep. The line on the screen went vertical. His heart was beating 600 times a minute. "I am fast," the soldier screamed. He didn't just walk, he vibrated across the room. He ran into a wall, bounced off, ran into the other wall, and fell over, his legs kicking the air uncontrollably. The second soldier started laughing. It was a high-pitched, manic screech. "My skin is too tight. I need to run. I need to build a house. No, I need to destroy a house. Let's do both." He started taking apart the lab equipment, unscrewing bolts with his bare claws at lightning speed. The third soldier simply froze. His system was so overloaded that he locked up. He stood like a statue, but his entire body was humming like a refrigerator. "General!" Glip yelled over the chaos. "The readings are off the charts. Their energy levels are at 4,000%. They are not stable." "Excellent!" Xar shouted, dodging a flying wrench thrown by the second soldier. "This is exactly what we wanted. Look at that energy. Look at that aggression." Xar looked at his vibrating, twitching, hallucinating soldiers. He did not see a disaster. He saw a weapon. He didn't realize that they had no coordination. He only saw that they were moving faster than the eye could see. "Load them onto the drop ships," Xar commanded. "Prepare the entire army. Give everyone a dose of the black potion. We attack immediately." "But General," Glip cried, hiding under a table. "They can't even stand up straight. One of them is trying to eat the floor tiles." It doesn't matter, Xar declared. The humans won't know what hit them. We will descend upon them like a storm of fury. The Krill army began to brew more of the thick, black sludge. Thousands of soldiers lined up, ready to drink the poison that would turn them into the most energetic, clumsy, and confused army the galaxy had ever seen. Xar smiled. He was sure victory was his. He had no idea he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. The sun was high in the sky now, burning through the mist of planet Zeta 4. But the human army did not care about the weather. They did not care about the strategy. Commander Jack stood at the front of the line. He looked terrible. His eyes were puffy. His hair was messy. He was holding a heavy plasma rifle, but he was holding it like a tired old man holds a cane. Behind him, the human soldiers were silent. There were no battle cries. There were no heroic speeches. There was only the low, angry grumbling of 1,000 people who had skipped breakfast. They were suffering from the caffeine crash. They were irritable. They were grumpy. They had a headache that throbbed behind their eyes. And they blamed the bugs. Here they come, Sergeant Miller groaned, rubbing his temples. Can they please be quiet? The noise is hurting my head. From the sky, the Krill invasion force descended. Usually, Krill dropships landed with perfect precision. They moved like graceful birds of prey. But today, the ships looked like they were being flown by crazy people. One ship wobbled left, then right, then did a loop-de-loop for no reason. Another ship came down too fast, bounced off a hill, and landed upside down in a swamp. What are they doing? Jack squinted his eyes. Are they drunk? The ramp of the lead ship slammed down. Attack, screamed a voice from inside. It was General Xar. But his voice was so high-pitched and fast it sounded like a chipmunk inhaling helium. The Krill army charged out. But charge was the wrong word. They exploded out of the ship. They were moving at impossible speeds. The caffeine overdose had kicked in fully. Their insect nervous systems were firing random signals to their muscles. One Krill soldier ran out, screaming a war cry, but his legs were moving faster than his body. He tripped over his own feet, did 3 cartwheels, and face-planted into the mud. He immediately jumped up, shouted, "I am the wind," and ran straight into a large tree. Clang! He fell down, unconscious. Another group of aliens tried to form a firing line. They raised their laser rifles. But their hands were shaking so violently that they couldn't aim. The laser beams flew everywhere. They hit the clouds. They hit the birds. They hit their own spaceship. They hit the dirt 3 feet in front of their own toes. Not a single shot came close to the humans. Commander Jack stood still. He didn't even raise his gun. He just watched in confusion. Do we shoot back? Miller asked. I don't think we have to, Jack said, watching the chaos. A massive Krill warrior, 7 feet tall and covered in armor, sprinted toward Jack. He looked terrifying. He was moving like a blur. He reached Jack in 2 seconds. The warrior raised a giant claw to strike. The humans gasped. But the warrior didn't strike. He couldn't stop. His brakes were broken. He ran right past Jack. Too fast. I can't stop. Sorry. Excuse me, the alien screamed as he zoomed past the human lines, ran through the camp, and disappeared into the jungle behind them. He was still running. He probably wouldn't stop until he hit the ocean. The battlefield turned into a comedy show. The aliens were vibrating so hard their armor plates were rattling. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The noise was deafening. Some aliens were having conversations with rocks. Some were digging holes at super speed and then filling them back up instantly. One alien managed to stop in front of Sergeant Miller. The alien was shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. His eyes were spinning in different directions. Human, the alien chattered rapidly. Give up, surrender now, we are supreme energy beings, I can smell math. Sergeant Miller, who was just very tired and wanted this to be over, slowly reached out his hand. He placed his hand on the alien's shoulder and gave a gentle push. The alien, who had zero balance because of the shakes, tipped over. He fell on his back, his legs kicking the air helplessly like an overturned beetle. Curse you, the alien squeaked. The world is spinning. Push them over, Jack ordered his men. His voice was flat and bored. Just push them over. The human army walked forward. They walked slowly. They didn't run. They just walked up to the vibrating, panicked aliens and tipped them over. It was the easiest battle in the history of the galaxy. It wasn't war, it was cow tipping. Within 20 minutes, the entire Krill army was lying on the ground. Some were twitching. Some were crying because they had too much anxiety. Some had simply crashed and fallen into a deep coma. General Xar crawled out of his crashed ship. He was dizzy. He threw up a little bit of green slime. He looked up and saw a pair of muddy boots. He looked higher. He saw the angry face of Commander Jack. Jack did not point a gun at Xar. He pointed a finger. You, Jack said, his voice low and scary. You have something that belongs to me. Xar trembled. He thought the human meant the planet. Or the sector. Take it. Xar jittered. Take the planet. Just make the shaking stop. My heart sounds like a drum solo. I don't want the planet, Jack grumbled. He stepped over the general and walked into the alien ship. He followed the smell of burnt beans. He found it in the lab. The chrome grinder. The empty bags. And a vat of the thick, black sludge the aliens had brewed. Jack dipped a finger into the sludge and tasted it. He spit it out. Disgusting, Jack said. You burned it. You amateurs. He grabbed the grinder. He grabbed the last remaining bag of beans that was hidden under the table. He walked back out to the battlefield. The war was over. The humans had won, not with bullets, but because the aliens couldn't handle a double-shot espresso. Miller, Jack called out. Plug this machine in. We are having a victory brew. Then we will accept their surrender. The war tent smelled wonderful again. It did not smell like mud, sweat, or burning lasers anymore. It smelled like fresh, properly brewed, hazelnut-flavored coffee. Commander Jack sat behind his metal desk. He looked like a new man. His eyes were bright. His headache was gone. He was holding a steaming mug in his hands, nursing it with love and affection. He took a long, loud sip. Ah, he sighed. That hits the spot. Across the desk sat General Xar, the High Commander of the Krill Empire. Xar did not look good. He was not tied up with ropes. He was not in handcuffs. He didn't need them. The alien general was suffering from the great crash. After the extreme energy of the battle, his body had shut down. He sat slumped in the chair, his forearms hanging down like wet noodles. His green shell looked pale and dull. He was shivering, not from cold, but from the chemical shock. Please, Xar whispered, his voice dry and scratchy. Please, no more loud sipping. The sound, it hurts my brain. Jack smiled. It was a friendly smile, but to Xar, it looked like the smile of a predator. Sorry, General, Jack said, taking another loud sip on purpose. Slurp. So, let's talk about the surrender. Xar looked at the human with wide, terrified eyes. He looked at the mug in Jack's hand. He looked at the coffee machine bubbling in the corner. He pointed a shaking claw at the machine. That weapon, Xar stuttered. The black potion. It is a crime against nature. We analyzed it. It is a neurotoxin. It creates chaos in the biological system. My soldiers, they are still vibrating. Some of them are crying because they can't remember how to blink. How can you use such a chemical weapon? It is cruel. Jack laughed. He put the mug down. General, you have it all wrong. It's not a weapon. We didn't force you to drink it. You stole it. We thought it was a super drug. Xar cried out. We thought it made you strong. But it just makes you insane. It nearly exploded our hearts. We only took one dose. Just one. And it destroyed my entire army. Xar leaned forward, his eyes filled with genuine horror. Tell me the truth, human. How do you survive it? Do you have an antidote? Do you have a special organ in your body that filters the poison? Jack leaned back in his chair. He looked at his sergeant, Miller, who was standing by the door drinking his own cup. They both grinned. General, Jack said calmly. We don't have an antidote. We just drink it. Every day. Xar gasped. Every day. Every morning, Jack corrected. Sometimes in the afternoon if it's a slow day. Sometimes at night if we have a deadline. Personally, I drink about 4 of these cups a day. Sergeant Miller over there. He drinks 6. The alien general went silent. He processed the information. His computer brain tried to calculate the biology of a creature that could consume that much toxin and survive. The result was a flashing red error message, danger. Extreme hazard. Xar realized he had made a terrible mistake. He had attacked a species that drank liquid heart attack fuel for breakfast. He realized that humans were not weak. They were biological monsters. If they could handle the black potion, they could probably handle anything. They were unkillable. You are demons, Xar whispered in awe. You poison yourselves for fun. It helps us focus, Jack said with a shrug. Now, about this treaty. Jack pushed a piece of paper across the desk. It was a standard surrender form. It said that the Krill Empire would leave the planet, never come back, and pay for the damages to the coffee supply. I will sign it, Xar said immediately. He grabbed the pen. His hand was shaking so much that his signature looked like a squiggle, but it was legal. I will sign anything. Just let us go. We want to leave this galaxy. We want to go somewhere safe. Somewhere where the creatures drink water. Only water. Smart choice, Jack said. He took the paper and nodded. You are free to go, General. But before you leave. Jack reached for the coffee pot. One for the road. I can add sugar. It takes the edge off. Xar screamed. It was a high-pitched screech of pure terror. He jumped out of the chair, tripped over his own feet, scrambled up, and ran out of the tent. Outside, the rest of the Krill army saw their leader running and started running too. They scrambled into their ships. Engines fired up. Within 2 minutes, the Krill fleet blasted off into the sky, disappearing into the stars at maximum speed. They were not retreating, they were fleeing from the caffeine monsters. Commander Jack stood at the door of the tent and watched them go. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful orange and purple colors. Peace had returned to planet Zeta 4. Sergeant Miller walked up beside him. He poured a fresh splash of coffee into Jack's mug. They really couldn't handle the roast, sir, Miller said. Lightweights, Jack chuckled. He took a sip and watched the stars. Well, the war is over. The galaxy is safe. And most importantly, he raised his mug in a toast. We have plenty of beans left.